David Washington. Yo,
What's
brother.
good?
Oh, man. Honor to sit down with you.
Honor's mine.
Yeah.
Man.
So tell me, how did BlacKkKlansman come your way?
BlacKkKlansman, I got a text message from Spike Lee. Now, we don't have each other. Well, I don't have his number.
Yeah.
And, you know, our families know each other.
Yeah.
But I never communicated.
A little bit.
Just a little bit. They got a little history. There's a little history there.
History.
A little history there. And, but I never had or established any kind of cell phone communication with him until that point. So I get a text saying, yo, Spike, call me. And I'm like, all right, this is probably a prank or something, but I'm definitely going to investigate. I'm going to try. I call him like, hello? Like, this Spike. I was like, what up, Spike? I got this book, this story. The first African-American detective in Colorado Springs infiltrates the Ku Klux Klan. I'm like, what? I'm thinking, all right, maybe this is Dave Chappelle's skit, and it's still Spike, I'm gonna do it. He said Jordan Peele gave it to him, I'm gonna send you the book. I was like, cool. I read the book, I was blown away. I was blown away that this piece of rich American history it fell through the cracks. It's not a well-known story. I called him back and said, yo, this is crazy. This is incredible. He's like, you love it? I love it. Bet, see you this summer.
Wow.
Yeah.
How would you describe your process working together? Like, what's he like as a director? And how did he impact your performance?
I felt the most freedom I've ever had, maybe even as going back to my athletic days, as an athlete or an artist, ever had. This legend that trusted me with this material, this very important material, this piece of history that needs to be that needs to be shown and displayed correctly. He trusted me with it. So we rehearsed, we discussed about 2.5 weeks. He wouldn't even let me. Even prior to the table read, he wouldn't let me, I tried to get in touch with Ron Starworth, the real Ron Starworth, and he would not let me talk to him. He didn't give me the number until the table read. And, he had his reasons, and I'm glad he did it that way.
Was it so you kind of had a moment to really develop your own thoughts and think about them separate from the real gentleman?
I think that's what I discovered. Okay. I found myself, all right, I can't go to him. I mean, there's stuff on the internet these days, YouTube information, but then I went deeper. What about me in the 60s or 70s? So I read myself of all hip-hop, R&B, EDM, and the Cranberries as well. I love them. And I went, I was my healthy diet, steady diets of War, of Slide, Family Stone, Led Zeppelin. This was for 3 months. I would go to bed to Soul Train every night. I would watch Superfly weekly. Wow. And I saw what that was doing to my spirit, what that was doing to my psyche, how I was talking, maybe even how I was posturing different. And that was all prior to talking to Ron, So I've never experienced anything like that. The kind of preparation that Spike introduced me to, and it's a real transformation. And before you try to ask me, that's what I'm saying. Come on,
hold on. I just want to say, how much I appreciate your work, because I think it's one thing for people to be exposed to you through BlacKkKlansman, which is phenomenal work.
Thank you, sir.
But I think for me, what put you in perspective is just where you're at in your career and in this moment right now and where you could go, was seeing Monsters and Men and being able to see those two characters off of each other within, I think I saw them weeks apart.
Wow.
And for me, I was like, when I look at that part, that's the supporting performance of the year for me, wow, sincerely. And so to see those two projects off of each other, and then that put you as a talent in context for me in a different way, where I'm really sincerely, truly excited to see what happens to your career and how it unfolds,
Thank you.
So I really wish you the best on your journey.
How do you propose to make this investigation?
Well, I've established contact and created some familiarity with the Klansmen over the phone. I'll continue in that role, but I'll need another officer, surprise, surprise, a white officer to play me when they meet face to face.
That's my point exactly.
Tell me how you found Green Book.
Green Book came, it came a few months after, we finished the Oscar run with Moonlight. And, I was reading, I was avoiding reading things. I was like, don't send me nothing unless it's really good, because I don't have time to just read to read, so we could be in agreement that it's not a project for me. I'm like, send me something that you feel good about. And so the ones that were coming my way, I would go through them, and then Green Book came, and it just really, the characters really popped off the page. I thought the there's a chemistry in the writing that was there. I thought the story was important, and the way in which the arc, the journey of the two characters was amazing to me.
It was a Fairley brother, right?
It's a yeah, Peter Fairley.
Yeah.
But I think what stood out to me most was this opportunity to step in the shoes of Don Shirley.
Sure.
This man who's there's so many stories that haven't been told.
Absolutely.
And you can't tell everybody's not gonna get a movie, you know? But what I thought was amazing about Don Shirley was that was an archetype, a person that I had never seen before on screen. You know, and you know, there's firsts for so many different characters or archetypes, but him, I hadn't seen him, somebody who was, usually when we go back pre-1975 or especially pre-civil rights, that we are so clearly in this place of oppression, right? And that exists in the film, but I think he is the most empowered you could be in that time, where this is a guy who is the boss in that car.
Absolutely.
And has always, even though they've gone below the Mason-Dixon line, there's this sense that besides a couple of situations, to me, there was this sense that I, as Don Shirley, could eject anytime I wanted. I didn't have to be there. I didn't need the money. I didn't have to have that experience.
When you say, I'm sorry, when you say eject, like emotionally or just from the job?
Leave, like he doesn't have to finish the tour.
Oh, yeah.
Because he didn't even have to go on the tour.
Right.
He wasn't, usually it's like, I need this guy to do this thing for me so that I can have my freedom, or so that I could have this, that, and the other when we go pre-civil rights.
Gotcha.
This guy, what his life was like up north in New York City, the fact that he could tour, he could do the Nina Simone, go to Europe, make his money, have his career, he could stay up north, you know, but him going down into the South was a choice. And it wasn't about him finishing because he needed that money or whatnot. It was something that he chose to do. He wanted to put himself on the front lines in his own unique way and allow people to be exposed to the type of man, the type of black man that he was, in order to sort of pierce the consciousness so that they couldn't just think of us as sharecroppers only.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And it's subtle work, meaning like his task, it's very subtle work, but it's the work that he felt that he was most suited to do, and that was just putting himself in that situation. So I felt like, and then all the complexities of the character, what was going on within him, his own battle with his, not even a battle with his sexuality, but his quietness about that.
That's what it felt like in the performance too. You didn't make it a thing. Yeah, it didn't become a thing. Like you weren't holding the audience's hand about it. You did. You played it layered. You layeredly played it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, brother.
And did you, now what you said, did you find that just on the words on the page? Is that once you started researching, is that when you, I mean, your process of getting in, once you see it on the page, right? Wise Man told me if it ain't on the page, it ain't on the stage. So once you saw it on the page, and then you how did you start coming into everything you just said now? You
know what's funny? That, as true as that is, I think my experience in this business, if you look at Viola, for instance, Viola Davis, who is just extraordinary.
Yeah.
But that is somebody who has been like, until what, 8 years ago, 10 years ago, maybe, and it's been a quick 10 years since she's really been on a certain platform of the space that she deserves. I feel like the experience, specifically speaking of actors of color, not to just go all into that too long, but you are kind of tasked with turning water into wine. And so instead of getting like, you know,
I got you, right, yeah.
You know, then you just get okay, here's a few more grapes, but you're not necessarily getting a fuller thing. So you always look at something, your nature, at least mine, and how I've kind of fought to just get to this place. I've always felt like I had to try to elevate something, even if it didn't need to be. Like I always felt like I had to find something else that is not even on the page. To bring to it, because I was only gonna be in it for 3 scenes anyway, right? And so, so with this, what I understood that it existed in a broad space. Like this is a film that a lot of people could be attracted to, right? And so sometimes those get dubbed commercial. And so what I wanted to do with this character that existed in a broader space was make sure that he had the complexity, the necessary complexity for him to resonate as being truthful, to you know. And so yes, that was there on the page. I think the bones of that were there on the page. But upon seeing him speak I got this little documentary called Little Bohemia, where he's in. He lived on top of Carnegie Hall along with 69 other artists.
Really?
Yeah. And
Dr. Shirley did?
Dr. Shirley did.
Oh, wow.
He lived there for like 50 years.
Wow.
So there was like 70 artist lofts on top of Carnegie Hall, and they were closing it and basically kicking all those people out. And so he appears in that a couple of times. And when I saw him, this one thing gave me a huge clue into him. And we made sure to put it in the script. He's in his 70s, though, and doing this. And speaking in the documentary, but he's speaking to the documentarian, and he says, well, I couldn't do the husband act and the concert pianist act.
Yeah, you said that in the car. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so,
that, yeah.
and we use that as a head fake to sort of show the audience, and spoilers and giving stuff away. But it was basically him in his 70s. If he hasn't openly come out, you know, he didn't say why he really got divorced in that way in his 70s, right. You know? So I'm like, he's private. You know, everything for him is very private and very contained, and that's not your business, and this is how I'm gonna, you know, and so it gave me a huge.
I must say, I mean, when that scene, when the reveal happens, when you are handcuffed, when he's handcuffed, I didn't see that coming. Do you know what I mean? And then like hearing you talk about it, how you talk about layered and like privatized it. It was a brilliant choice.
Thank you.
Definitely.
Dear Dolores, D-E-A-R. This is an animal. As I'm writing this letter, I'm eating potato chips. And I'm starting to get thirsty. And you know this is pathetic, right?
So if us, like just as an audience and looking at your work, if page one of your story as an actor for us is Ballers, right? We first see you in that. What was happening? Where were you at before that? Like, but with just what space were you in? Where were you at just as a person, like looking at this work? I know you came out of sports and whatnot, but just kind of share with us, you know, where you were at before your career begins to, like, you know, you start, you know, hit the track, start running.
I was, I guess I was in spiritual transit. I was excited about the unknown, but deeply terrified of it as well. I find there was a moment where I tore my Achilles, and I was 29 years old when I tore it. A 29-year-old running back that really doesn't have a resume, has no film, is not sexy. You know, you're not gonna get hired, really. So I basically knew it was over, football-wise. But here comes these feelings of, I don't know, birthright, if you will. I always wanted to be an actor. And I'm like, this is the space, this is sort of the opportunity while I'm in this insurmountable amount of pain and popping pain pills.
Had you communicated that to your parents? And I ask because they're both actors.
Yeah. I don't think so.
Had you been brave enough to ever say?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
So when you go to them, and I'm curious as to, like, we all know your father, you know, personally my idol, but
I love him too, man. I love him too.
But what impact has your mom had on your work?
Maybe more of an impact, or definitely different than my father. I mean, I'm thinking about Green Book. My mother is a classically trained pianist, taught lessons at 11 years old in rural North Carolina, dark-skinned woman, you know, who was worldly early from a small town, you know, and seeing her be able to play the numbers that you were playing in the film, she can do that without even reading the notes.
Wow.
I thought it was like magic to me. I mean, seeing my father do Shakespeare in the Park, knowing he didn't talk like that at the house, and spit these words so clearly, you know, this poetry. I fell in love then. I thought it was just something I remember what I felt, you know, watching these movies, watching Glory, you know, watching my mother play. I just felt like I was connected to him in such a way. I was able to tap into a percentage of my brain that usually you can't tap into, and that was sort of the vessel to be, or the portal to to that feeling is through this artistry. So, you know, my mom said this too before. Just because you're an artist doesn't mean you have to paint. Doesn't mean you have to act or direct. You know, you can do it in everyday lives. Grip, key grip, foodie. You know what I mean? A sculptor. So I found myself as an athlete, really masquerading as an athlete, but I was an artist then. I just got into character. And, but I was, you know, so I never told them. I told my mother once I got the opportunity to audition. She actually took me to my first audition. I was in crutches, in a boot, on pain pills, so I was very relaxed. You know what I'm saying? I left it all in the room. Sheila Jaffe, God bless her, that casting agent, she believed in me first. After my first audition, she said, so you should retire from football. Oh, and then 10 auditions later, I got that. Then I went to HB Studios. So we shot the pilot in 2014 with the great Peter Berg. And then I went to New York, and I found HB Studios, Rochelle Oliver, who's another mentor of mine, Stephen Henderson, who directed me in a play called The Dutchman. Okay. And you know, Mary Baraka. Mary Baraka, exactly. And that's when the bug really hit. So actually, it wasn't even the pilot that I got to shoot with The Rock and the bells and whistles and all that. It was getting into that gym, that HBO gym, and working on the game, discovering what I can do. And again, Spike Lee, on another level, taught me that there's other ways to convey truth. There's not one way to do it. There's multiple ways. There's an abstract way of, you know, it's like organized chaos. You know what I mean? And I really, it changed everything, the whole perspective of the approach to the craft for me, you know what I mean? So I gotta ask you, man, like, I never actually got to congratulate you on your Academy Award, man.
Thank you, thank you.
But congratulations, and what that represents. How did you, basic question, how did you feel, man? Like before, even like, okay, no, actually this, I want to know for the audience too, for actors out there, the campaigning, right? Before, and then it happens, and then after, can you take us through that emotionally?
You know, at that time, I just felt so grateful for people wanting to have a conversation with me about my work. Like in a real way. Like, you know, it's one thing to be in a project and you kind of on the wave of that project and people are, you know, applauding it or watching it, whatever. Because I've been on a couple of things that resonated, like House of Cards or whatever, but no one's really trying to have a conversation with me about it, right? Or knowing, like, the work that you put in for someone to be like, that's great, or that sucks. Like, they don't, you know, and that's fair. Like, nobody knows that. But just to have conversation after conversation about the themes in the film, or how you make scenes come alive, or just the chemistry between actors, the deeper motivations under choices, and like where characters come from, what resonates with you about that character, like all those things. That was having. I started acting in 1993, you know, and so and started working professionally in 2000. I'd never had an opportunity to talk about the work and, you know, and how I approach it, which is fine. But so that was. When you say talk about, just to a certain audience. In a way, and even talk about it in terms of press. Like, right, yes. So much of our experience, you know, what I found is, so there's only so much bandwidth in an interview, right? Only so much space. 40% of my interview is usually around things of like diversity. Right, or color, you know, and we're in a real time where that's a real conversation and that has a real place. So as a Black actor coming into that, who for me is, I don't want to, but I would do this for free. Like, it really is something that I'm passionate about. So when you kind of get to the questions about the work or the process, like so far down the line that you almost don't get to exhaust it, and in some way, in terms of like a press conversation, right? Or just having a conversation with an audience or a public. And so Moonlight was the first time that we had these Q&As and the way see people responding to everyone in the film is Black. So we talked color and race, but we really got to get down into the work, into the process, into how you thought about the characters and approached it. So then the audience gets to respect the approach of how an artist who happens to be Black also takes a script and metabolizes it and transforms, right? Because we spend so much of our time talking about color that the the transformation process of actors of color doesn't get recognized, not in a deeper way, you know? And when actors who are white are never asked those questions, right? So they got all this runway to talk about the work.
Like, what does it feel like to be a white actor?
Like no one asked them that, which is whatever, it's what it is. But so for me, that was the first time you're like, yo, wow, you want to know how? Actually, all right, cool, you know. So that was amazing, and then winning and all that, whether I had won or not.
Winning and all that. Come on, man. Come on. I mean, because I guess let me just say, because of what it represents, man. When you see Mr. Washington hold the trophy, when you see you, Cuba, hold the trophy, it's, you know, there's people that look like us in Kansas, there's people that look like us in Middle Texas that are like saying, oh wait, I can do it.
Yes.
I can do it. Even if it ain't acting, I can run the plant. Right. I can be an agent. You know what I mean? It's just what it represents. You know what I mean? So. You know,
I know. It's funny. I had this. There's a makeup artist I work with. I remember I was on Treme and I was doing like a couple of scenes here and there, you know, and I was in a place, at least where I was just really hungry to do more, you know, and more fulfilling work, you know. And I remember she says to me, her name's Debbie Young, and she said to me, Mahershala, you ask God to guide you to your excellence. And I've been praying that like almost every, you know, it always pops up for me. And I felt like that moment right there was, and I think for so many people, whatever your path is, whatever your passion is, that like we all just want to be guided to our excellence. You know, that place within us. And people label it different things. You know, there's people who are atheists, there's people who are agnostic or whatever, Muslim, Jew, whatever. But I think for me, it was, I just want to be fulfilled. I want to be holistically, but I want to be guided to my excellence. And so I think in that moment, I felt like it was a prayer that got answered, you know? And
standing there.
Not that I have ever prayed for a trophy in my life, but that moment symbolized an answered prayer, and that you are on this path to like, you keep working. Like, okay, now keep working. And this is a symbol of that prayer that's been answered. Now you keep working towards your excellence, and what that means for people who that resonates with, who may look like me or feel like me or my work resonate with, like, oh yeah, I gotta, like all my folks back in Hayward, California, and Oakland, and the Bay Area, I know that that's a thing for them. We're like, oh, Hirsch is up there, you know?
Yeah, man. Yeah.
So
that's great.
That means a lot, man, to me. So,
how is that?
Salty.
Have you ever considered becoming a food critic?
Not really. Why, is there money in that?
I'm just saying you have a marvelous way with words when describing food.
Let me ask you. Let me ask you. So in Spike is interesting, man, because one, you know, he's on at least my Mount Rushmore for sure.
Yeah, mine too.
And what's so amazing about him is that the multifaceted thing, the multi-pronged director, writer, actor, always appearing in things.
His own publicist.
He's got his own, he really is a genre, like in a real way. And so, you know, like if somebody were to do, you know, a Woody Allen movie, you know what that is in a certain way. Scorsese, Spike Lee is his own genre, you know, and he has this little quirky space that he lives in. How was that stepping into that? And did you understand that? When did it click? Because you got it, you nailed it. You're working with Adam Driver, some other terrific actors. What was that like, and what was it like existing in a Spike Lee space?
You know, I've been saying it before. I think Spike Lee is a master of cinematic tone. I think he really understands how to display real life, finding the the humor and tragedy, and finding the most darkest, harshest moments kind of funny. You know what I mean? So
did it ever feel like borderline inappropriate to you? Did you ever feel like, ooh, can we do that?
Never.
Never?
I couldn't do this role for anybody else.
Right.
You know, because I know he's in his 4th decade. You know what I'm saying? And his mountain, like you said, he's on my Mount Rushmore as well, knowing this is right up his alley. I didn't feel like Adam and I, we weren't playing for jokes, you know? And again, I was talking about the feeling of an artist, such a freeing feeling with him directing me. It was so liberating because there were like no notes. There wasn't any line readings. There wasn't, can you be funnier? Can you be, you know, they say bigger, but that means blacker, I think, a lot of times that translates. None of that. It was, he'd strip stuff down, but he understands momentum too. When you do all the preparation, you know, you study, you go to bed with it, you wake up with it, or some don't. But he understands in this moment right now, something changed. When we're set up and we're going, something changed. So we're gonna go with what that change is, because it might be more truer. You know, Stephen Henderson told me, don't get it right, get it true. So that kind of takes the pressure off of nailing the target, trying to be accurate in my performance. You know, make it more. Where's that? Because I think that takes away from the soul, and I think he's all about that. He has this way of, you know, this sort of abstract ability to convey a truth that you didn't even realize was there until maybe the second take. And sometimes it's only the second take that you'll get. Then we're moving on. He has such a pace about his work. Everybody seems to be on board. Again, he loves sports. It felt like a team concept. Everybody wanted to service the film. That was all foreign to me, man. And its completion, you know, as far as from catering to hair and makeup, you know what I mean? That was, so I'm almost spoiled in a way. Because I want to work like that all the time, where there's no egos. That can happen? What? Like, and look what happens when there's no egos, when we're just here for the film, here for the story. I just found it was tremendous, man. And
let me ask, the voice and speech choice, when'd you lock in on that? And like, why? What's the real gentleman's name?
Ron Starwer.
Had you met with him and go, oh, I'm going in that direction with it?
I was.
Because it worked really well.
Thank you, man. I was, you know, I online, because Spike wouldn't give me his number or email or nothing, so I was going off of some interviews I saw online, and then when I got to finally talk to him, but Spike, he kept telling me, Ron Starwer is not the Bible. Ron Starwer is not the Bible. So what was happening, it just worked out organically. I was totally locked into the voice. And then I sort of, like a week before we started shooting, I was like, I just let it go. I was like obsessing with it, then I just stopped. I said, F it. All right, I'm listening to what Spike's saying, listen to what God is saying. Go with it, trust that it's in there. So it was, there was some specifics, like the inflection on the white thing, white, the word white. Actually, I gotta be honest too, my mom's here too, and she says it like that too, sometimes white, so I have fun with that part, but yeah, it was, I just wanted to be true to the guy, you know, this is, and he didn't, and I get a little squeamish sometimes when we talk about code switching and like, you know, I went to a private school, but I also grew up in North Carolina. I got a lot of time there. I was able to go to Europe and Italy, you know, every summer. So what am I supposed to sound like? You know what I mean? What you know what I'm saying? I got all these experiences. And thinking about the character too with Doctor, like he kind of said the same thing in the you know, in the rain scene. Like I'm not black enough. I'm not
white enough. Like, not man enough. Where do you fit?
Where do you fit? And that other layer of the sexuality too. Like that, all of that's there.
Why you acting like you ain't got skin in the game, brother?
Rookie, that's my fucking business.
It's our business. I'm going to get you your membership card so you can go to the cross burning and get in deeper with these guys. And I would ask you the same question about your speech, because I mean, Juan, I said Juan, Juan had a different swag, different everything, posture, everything was different. I mean, are those choices on the day, or do you kind of get?
It was, Juan was really conscious. I started sort of meditating on, so I get to a place and I usually walk. I walk it for a little while. So when I get, and I was,
like you literally thinking, like hiking?
Yeah, like just like be in the space, get there, and I was thinking about Miami and the heat and these brothers being out on the street and what that'll do to your body and like just letting things go and relax a bit. And so he kind of lumbers. He's wearing some you know, high top Nikes, some Dunks or whatever.
Had the white jeans on.
Yeah, they're unlaced, and so you're gonna drag your feet a little bit. He lumbers, you know. And then with Doc Shirley, I thought of him as a dancer. You know, and so if you see a dancer on the subway or on the street, you go, that's a dancer.
I see.
That's a ballerina, or that's, and so I thought of him as being like a fencer, you know, so everything being like really precise. And then, for instance, with True Detective, this guy is a broadsword, so it's just, you know, and so how all that informs speech you know, thinking about sometime my speech, at least with Don Shirley, I felt like as soon as I got more articulate and I brought it up, it made my whole body it brought my whole body in a different place as well. And so thinking about the dancer, thinking about him being very conscious and precise on the keys. So that means he would be that way with his language, right? And then also seeing him speak. It all made sense to me. So I was just trying to keep all those balls in the air, you know. And so I did hire someone, and I worked with I worked with a woman by the name of Denise Woods, a voice and speech coach, and and so I do think about all those things. And what I love about acting is that I absolutely get on my wife's nerves because I'm real nitpicky. But I don't mean to be. You know, I really don't. But like I'm like, oh, that thing goes there actually, you know. And so acting is like the perfect place for my nature, you know, to like pick at things and find its place, or just to be free and let it go and allow those ideas to juggle those things. It like I feel exhausted by the time I'm done working. And I kind of need to exhaust my mind in that way because it's the only place that makes the most sense for me, just in my existence and how I just like approach.
I feel you. I mean, like I honestly feel it's therapy for me. You know, I was action packed with issues growing up. You know, and this sort of, again, football served as this sort of source of independence. You know what I mean? But I realized I can put all that stuff, all the stuff I learned, what I was feeling, into these characters. You know, I mean, I mean, there's a hierarchy. I give it to God first. But then I'm able to. You know, one of my prayers always is just use me, God. I'm a vessel. Just talk through me. I'm just here to service this, whatever it is. And my goodness, it's so much fun too. And it's fun to be able to work out, you know, Ricky Jarrett's, you know, action-packed issue history of father stuff or whatever, just to throw it in, just to be in these clothes. And something about Miami too. I love Miami, by the way. I love filming there. The people, the food, the culture, all that. So that was fun.
Let me ask, because you brought it up, and of course I brought it up. I'm just curious. This is a conversation I've never had with another actor. What place does, like, you know, I know your grandfather was a preacher, correct? My grandmother was a preacher. My mom's an ordained minister. What place does like your religious spiritual consciousness, how does that inform your work in terms of like perhaps boundaries or just the energy behind accomplishing beginning, middle, end, like finishing a day, finishing a shoot, finishing a job? Like how does it impact your acting?
That's a good question. Really good question.
If you're aware of it. If you're not aware, you might not be at the place where you like sit up there and like have necessarily thought of it like that, because it could just, I know it can also just be something that is just, you've always known, sort of affects your everyday. But I'm just curious, do you feel like your sort of spiritual consciousness in some ways dictates that you draw lines for yourself?
It's such a, and I'm still, I don't have a definitive answer for that. I'm still sort of I'm sort of buffering, if you will, right now with, I mean, it directly impacts basically everything I do, you know, especially this arts and crafts, you know what I mean? That being said, when I think about boundaries, I feel like that's putting, you know, I'm bounding him as well, bounding God, like that. So it should, if possibilities are limitless, so should be the explorative freedoms of creativity. So, you know,
well, okay, this is a better way. I think what I meant by that is there a character that just because you're conscious in a certain space, was there somewhere you could read and be like, I can't really justify playing that person? You know, even if it's not about playing the good guy or playing the bad guy, but like I can't do the math on how this person is the way they are, and so therefore it just feels like, you know, unnecessary, or that something is being exploited there, or it feels egregious, or like something about it that have you ever read anything where you said, just considering who I am, this doesn't work for me? I
have, but I've also read some characters that are so so absurd
Yeah.
in so many ways, but I'm thinking about the overall point of this. What are we saying though? And if it services the message, again, going to films, watching films as a kid, I wanted to cry, I wanted to laugh, I wanted to enjoy myself. I also wanted to be sometimes in an entertaining way taught a lesson. So if this is an opportunity for those kids in Texas or the kid in Maine that looks like us, overall, our overarching theme of the film, this is why you shouldn't make these decisions. I'll service that. I'll be, again, but that's like, it's bigger than me.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I'll service that. So I'll be the buffoon or this absurd fellow if it means you'll get why he did the stuff and what happens to him.
Right.
So then again, that kind of breaks the chains of what I won't do and all that, because it's about who I get to work with. And that's why I'm in my life right now anyway. Like just being like True Detective and coming into a franchise like that. That's the kind of opportunity. I wanted to ask you this too though. Yes. After winning, right? And what I was saying before, like how important it is to the community of our actors and just overall, does that change your taste? Are you more selective now? Are you less selective now? Like how does that inform you moving forward?
Well, after I won, I was still just as hungry though.
Yeah.
Because what I mean is by that is Moonlight, I'm in it for 30 minutes, 25 minutes, you know. Green Book is the most present I've ever been in a story. So I'm 44. Been working.
But when you say present, like just screen time,
screen time, but also dimensionality. Though.
Okay, all right.
Like having a character that really has dimension, and your backstory is in the movie.
Yes,
you know what I mean? Opposed to what's my backstory? And then you're in there for 2 scenes, right? So
I just want to make that clear because
thank you. So for me, going into like finishing this Oscar season or a couple years ago, I was like, do I finally get to get a lead shot? You know, like, and so.
So you are human.
Because I didn't feel fulfilled.
Sure.
Grateful, there's a difference between gratitude and fulfillment.
Okay.
Grateful for the work, but not fulfilled by it.
Right.
Just, I went home like wanting to work some more. I wasn't tired when I went home, you know? And so Green Book and True Detective happened within days of each other in terms of booking them.
Wow.
And I shot them. I finished Green Book, and a week later started True Detective.
Wow.
And so when you talk about like where I was at, like after the Oscar, I was approached for originally True Detective was written different, and so the lead was white, and the other cop was black, and once you see the show, you'll see that there's it's different from the other seasons, in that like the lead character Wayne. You know, it really, he's at the point of the arrowhead, you know? And so I came out of all that, and I'm going, and I read the scripts. I was blown away. I got to read the first 4, and I could have played the second lead, the supporting character, but in my mind, I was like, I've done this my entire career, though. I've never done that, and I'm 40 at that time, 43 years old, you know? And if it don't happen now, it really may not happen. So my grandfather was a state police officer, and these are 2 state police officers. So I went on my phone, I'm hitting up some cousins and whatnot, and they sent me some pictures of my grandfather in his state police officer uniform. So I texted them to Nic Pizzolatto, the showrunner, and I was like, see, we existed in this space in the 60s, in the 70s, you know, state police officer. And this is in Arkansas. And
just in case
this is like, my grandfather's from Kentucky. And I was like, you know, I think your story would be served. I think the story would improve in this case if this lead character is black, looking at this crime working to be solved in 1980. Like, what is that in 1980 in Fayetteville, Arkansas, and this lead detective is black, and it's a black guy and a white guy, you're asking someone questions, and he's the lead detective. If you're white, then they may not look at me when I ask them a question. They're like addressing him, but I'm the lead cop. So like this, I'm like, this is how you can
address. The law's on your side.
This is how you can address those things that don't, we don't have to beat them over the head with the race element, but let's write it. I'm encouraging him to like think of it from the standpoint of how it's experienced. Racism is not experienced as like the N-word all the time, right? It's more like, yo, he wouldn't even look me in the eye. Or like I said, thank you, he just brushed me off. Like, you know, that, and so.
Sort of normalizing behavior.
Yeah, and so once I came back to him and I was like, I want to play that part. And he thought about it, a couple of days, got back to me and he was like, yo, let's do this. Like, I'm down. He went back, we wrote his whole thing. And like, he brought, you know, who else do you like? I was like, yo, Carmen is dope. So you got Carmen the Jogo, and then we got, you know, Steven came on, and you know, we put it together. But so that's what I wanted to do. I want to finally like get into it, you know, and finally get to carry that.